NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Stream over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand. Premium annual memberships include all video content as well as access to virtual labs and the Q&A forums. You'd pay $85.70 a month or $857 per year, but we have a special offer for our listeners. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your active subscription, visit itpro.tv/securityweekly and use the discount code SW30. Logarithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns in application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt. IT Pro TV.
Well, IT Pro TV, that was the last announcement. Let's do them again. We love IT Pro so much, we're just going to run their ad again.
Hell yeah.
They're awesome. So I'm actually here to tell you not just about AnyCon. Actually, I'm just here to tell you about AnyCon and then do stories, because AnyCon, I believe, is the last announcement for the show. It's a hacker conference in Albany, New York at the Albany Convention Center featuring Capture the Flag, Hardware Hacking Village, Ping Pong Tournament, keynote from Dave Kennedy, Security Weekly's own Doug White will be there, giving away T-shirts. Select people will get challenge coins. And we've got glassware. Go to anycon.info/tickets. Register today. The Security Weekly listeners can use the code Paul to get 25% off your ticket. That conference is next weekend. June 17th is Friday.
Yep.
And 18th. So this is like probably not going to run it next week. This is the last AnyCon. I don't get to make the AnyCon joke anymore. That was the last time.
You can make the AnyCon joke anytime you want.
I could.
See what I did there?
It's not just AnyCon.
It's anytime.
Anywhere, anytime. Run once, run everywhere. Like container,
Java. Like
containers.
Like Java. Wait. You want to hear a 4-word horror story?
Java?
1.3 billion devices run Java.
It is scary. What do we got in the security news this week?
All sorts of crazy stuff.
They're all over the map this week. They really are. Where do you want to start?
Oh,
and
God.
It's just me and you to talk about stories.
Just us. So if I had one to start with, just one real quick.
Do it.
And is it a follow-on from last week? Last week we talked about Jay Beal and his
WannaCry?
awesome... Jay Beal and his awesome post about the
WannaCry?
Mr. Robot VM,
Yeah.
the CTF, and he talked about breaking it and how you can hack it, and then, oh my God, from a defender's standpoint, how do you defend against these attacks? And it was doing brute force password attacks and password spraying against the WP admin interface, which are applicable elsewhere. This time he goes in and starts looking at some of the other attacks and showing us how we can configure AppArmor to prevent some of the attacks as well. So some really cool stuff to think about going through, and some multiple layers that we can use to defend against some of the attacks, and stuff that we can practice against with some real live sort of CTF type stuff.
Cool.
So, good stuff.
And that link's in the show notes.
It is, and it's part 2 of the one from last week.
So, this is going to be funny.
Oh, God.
Top 5 InfoSec concerns for 2017. You ready for this, Larry?
Oh, this is not January.
Number 1.
Yep.
Network security.
Oh, God. In another news, water is wet. Shit. All right, what's number 2?
Number 2 is networking.
In other news, air is wet.
When it rains.
Confused.
Something like that.
Oh, fuck. What's number 3?
Windows OSs.
Oh, God. And in other news,
Oh, this is hilarious. Number 4 is OS security. So
in other news,
is that like other operating systems other than Windows security?
And in other news, Paul just ashed in his pants. Oh wait,
that's never news. Number 5 is Active Directory.
Oh God.
But we just talked.
Why is this even a story?
Active Directory is an issue, as we just talked about, actually, and gave some.
It's not an issue; it's a feature.
It's very vivid examples of how you can abuse those features for
my God.
Fun and profit.
Wait, no,
and mayhem.
seriously, what's number 1 again?
Number 1 was network security.
Number 2 is networking. Number 1 is network security. Number 2 is networking.
But I think this is what people.
Number 3 is Windows OS. Number 4 is what?
So he dug into the on-site traffic and behavior spanning the first 4 months of the year, and most people were searching for network security.
Oh, what they were searching for.
I think this is more of like what they're searching for.
Oh.
Yeah. It's of limited usefulness on that article, to say the least. I don't know what people searching for are the top 10 concern. I mean, I guess according to one anyway.
I want to talk about number 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is really cool. Something about they printed documents and were able to get the talk about this, Larry.
Yeah,
You've done some analysis on this.
Well, and it's interesting. It's metadata in your printed documents, and this has been going on for a very long time. In fact, we have talked about it numerous times on the show.
A long time ago, we first talked about.
Yeah, when it first started happening.
Yeah, because HP and other printer manufacturers were in trouble because you could fingerprint the printer.
You still can.
Based on what was printed. And was that for like
Yes.
Troubleshooting, or was that for nefarious reasons? We probably speculated.
I don't remember why. I want to say, and they talked about it in at least this article as to why it originally happened. Mm-hmm. But what the deal is that the printers, when our color print or have the color capability, print a series of microdots in yellow that are nearly imperceptible by the human eye, that contain a number of fingerprints about the printer that printed the document. Ideally, my thought is, and if I remember correctly, that it was tended to be an anti-counterfeit measure, so that if you scanned a $20 bill and printed it, it would have the microdots embedded in it.
Okay.
That you could determine which printer printed the $20 bill.
talking about this like 10 years ago. Or
Exactly. And effectively, what happened was the documents that ended up at what was the name of the
Intercept?
The Intercept. The documents that ended up at the Intercepts were printed copies of the documents, which had the microdots. Which you can take those microdots to the EFF's website, plug them in manually, and it will tell you what they decode to. And it happened to decode to a specific printer. That specific printer was tied to a government contractor. That government contractor, because of the requirements to be a government contractor, has very strict logs about who printed what to where.
Right.
And who printed what to where happened to be a woman by the name of Reality Winner, who also on her computer from her work had email exchanges from her to the Intercept.
Back up. Her name is what now?
Reality Winner.
Lee Winner.
Reality Winner. And no, if you are just coming out from a coma for the last year, she did not win a reality TV show.
That's what I thought initially when I saw these headlines.
Her first name is Reality.
And her last name is Winner.
And I'm going to steal a line from Trevor Noah from The Daily Show. You crazy white people are just picking names out of the dictionary. Hello, Perception. How are you today?
Good Lord.
Good night, underpants.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say about...
Forget the name. Forget the name.
I'm just trying to understand the thought process of the parents.
Forget the name.
I'm trying. I can't get past the name.
Forget the thought process of the parents that didn't teach her about the damn microdots.
Clearly, they weren't listening to Paul's Security Weekly.
Oh God! I mean, this is a thing. This is really really bad OPSEC for two reasons. One, you printed it from a printer at work with the microdots that you probably didn't know were there. But are on color-enabled printers. The other one was, if you're going to do that type of stuff, don't email them from your work computer and your work account. I'm like, you don't think someone's going to figure that out?
Yeah.
Welcome to reality.
Oh,
You're a winner.
You went there.
I did. Sorry.
I don't know. These stories aren't all that interesting. The OneLogin, I don't know. The chief reveals new details of the breach. I didn't find many.
What was it?
I didn't find many details in there.
Okay.
I mean, they had a bad breach. We'll see if they can recover from it.
Yep.
It's scary. Any time single sign-on or multi-factor authentication or password stores get breached. Certainly, I'm still standing strong on my LastPass kind of thing, and I still recommend that. And it's hard for enterprises to do this, right? If you have a single sign-on solution, you want to embody what the name means and really have that be a single sign-on and not have it be 2 or 3 different sign-ons. But for my own personal OPSEC, as Graham and I were talking about, right? Like, I do use a password manager, but I purposely keep out of that password manager some passwords, and I manage those manually, which lets me basically automate the ones that I can automate, and then, like the one you use to log into your domain registrars, your cloud hosting provider, the ones who could do serious damage.
Your online banking.
Online bank, your G Suite, Gmail password, right? Because that's just not your email. That's a whole bunch of other services as well.
Yep. So you want to hear a good one? I went to go change my password for my online banking recently. And it asked you a security question, which I know the answer to. It's not a problem because
it's a fake answer that you have in encrypted files.
Right, exactly. and I know it. It's guaranteed to be the right answer. And I know the current password. And I put in a new password. And I match the new password. And I know this because I've copied and pasted out of a password manager or some variety and modified.
Like a generator.
And modified my own so that, and plug it in. And it says, we're sorry, we couldn't complete this because the item that you answered in field blank wasn't correct. Like, it was basically along the lines of, hey, you only answered 1 out of 2 of your security questions correctly.
But we only asked you 1.
But we only asked you 1.
Now you have to call tech support. Good luck with that.
I haven't changed the password yet. I'm waiting for someone else to call and complain, and then they'll fix it. And then But
that's terrible.
Craziness. Speaking of passwords and two-factor, my story number 2, the Epic two-factor. I haven't dug into this in its entirety, but there's this allegedly new project out there from a company called PC Pursuit. And the sort of the way this is working is that effectively they are tying or they have the ability to tie your Active Directory login to your physical security system. Meaning, you badge into the building.
Then you're allowed to log in.
But not before. So if I'm in your domain and I compromise Paul's credentials and I try to compromise or use Paul's credentials somewhere at 2:30 in the morning and Paul has not badged into the building, they don't work.
Interesting.
And if I compromise your credentials and I attempt to use them in a machine in a different building, even though you're logged in and you're in the right building, it doesn't work.
It actually makes a lot of sense.
Because it's tied to specific location.
Except when I work from home or VPN.
Exactly, or except for when you work remote. Now, there's potential ways around some of those types of things as well. And I'm just thinking, and I don't know that they've got the solution built in, but I'm thinking about some of those is that you can tie some fairly accurate location to where you may be, quote, badged in. You could have a badge reader on your computer and you could badge in, and it's becomes two-factor. That becomes a little bit more expensive, and I can think of a bunch of other ways that we could tie, quote, physical location to some of that as well.
Except the organization has OWA installed and Exchange for mobile devices, and it ignores that, and that's what I'm. It suffers from the same problem that like two-factor authentication does, right? Yeah, it's great for when you're logging in a normal way, but when you're using a mobile app or using the web version of it or whatever, accessing through an API, we have to make exceptions for that. And unfortunately, that's what attackers prey on, is the exceptions.
Yep. Yeah, there isn't a lot of information on their website currently, but some folks I know gave them a call and asked them some questions and such. And it appears, if it all works as promised, it looks to be pretty slick.
So, authentication bypass is not a new attack to embedded devices or IoT systems. Apparently, people still use WiMAX. And I wanted to ask you, like, who's still using WiMAX? Is it for, like, point-to-points? I think you'd use different technology.
There's almost no one using WiMAX. The last install of WiMAX in a metropolitan area I knew of was Las Vegas, and they've decommissioned it. For the most part,
in favor of Wi-Fi, of course.
No.
4G.
4G. 4G actually has better speed and better coverage than WiMAX ever did.
Gotcha.
Quite honestly, many years ago, Paul, you and I were involved in a statewide deployment of WiMAX.
Was it RIMAX?
It was WiMAX. Yep.
But it was called, the project was called, like,
it was something else. It was like
WiMAX,
yeah, whatever the project was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a statewide WiMAX thing here, which they only really needed one tower to cover the entire state.
I played with one of those devices once.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. They gave us kind of like
I still have my WiMAX adapter at home.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. PCMCIA, I might add.
Remember PCMCIA?
But WiMAX...
I have a whole drawer full of PCMCIA cards.
Let me
and then those
that.
mini PCMCIA?
Express 34.
Express, that's
Let
what
me
it was.
dig through
Express
that when you get a chance. Yeah, let me dig through that when you get ready to sit.
You can have them, dude. There's no device in any
remotely
current... I'm sure you do teach in the wireless class.
Yeah. But yeah, so WiMAX very much fell out of favor. In fact, the statewide installation here actually failed because of 4G. And then
there was but it uses radio bands that can be used for other things,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I remember we were talking about how organizations in Rhode Island own some of those bands, and they were letting them use it, and they're probably taking them back, and they can sell them or they can use them for other things. And I would think that point-to-point wireless solutions might use WiMAX, but maybe not. I know my friend was telling me he does a lot of consulting for small businesses. That Ubiquiti has a point-to-point wireless technology. It works really well, and I forget what frequency.
I think it's 3.9 gigahertz, if I remember correctly.
Okay, and that's not WiMAX. That's different from WiMAX.
Right. Yeah, it's something else. And
he said it works awesome.
I've heard of the Ubiquiti stuff, and I haven't gotten a chance to play with it in a long time.
I'm wondering what you would. How do you sniff that? Is it a USRP?
You buy another Ubiquiti device and you man in the middle it.
Yeah.
I mean,
can you put it into monitor mode?
They're custom proprietary devices. There may be some other stuff that has some radios that you could do it. You could potentially do it with a software-defined radio, but then you have to reverse engineer their protocol. The modulation in their protocol, which you could do. It's entirely
take
possible.
Some time.
Absolutely, be some doing. I might argue that the amount of time that you would spend to do something like that in man hours might actually be cheaper to go buy a Ubiquiti device and attempt to potentially man in the middle.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Which would require you actually getting man in the middle, so required physical access of some point.
Mm-hmm. Where do we want to go next? So what do you think about the deception technology in Javelin's pretty cool. I think it's one of the better, definitely one of the better uses of it. Do you see this becoming mainstream?
Well, knowing that I know a guy that does a lot of offensive countermeasures type of things, I would see that this would be something right up that offensive countermeasures type of alley with the honey tokens and the honey accounts and those types of things. Like the quote, not necessarily hacking back, but providing that tar pit for them to end up in.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that when Jay was talking, he was like, yeah, you can set up a tar pit, but mostly you just find network administrators that are like looking for stuff or looking to see if addresses are in use. You don't really find attackers, which is why I think that deception technologies that are built into other security solutions and used as part of the process are like deception and honeypots on their own are of limited use, in my opinion. When you start integrating some of that technology into other things, I think that's a win.
Yep. The honeypot needs to evolve. And where's Tom Liston when you need him, right? The honeypot needs to evolve into something a little bit more robust.
For sure. Flash is still out there, and it's vulnerable. So Duo Security did this study, And there was a lot of other statistics in there, and nothing against dual security at all. But, they basically reported on phishing attacks are on the rise, and, there's a lot of outdated Microsoft operating, all stuff we already know. But one that stuck out for me was in their research, and they have a phishing product, right, and they do other kinds of monitoring. So they have a pretty good view of the world, of the internet, rather. And they said 53% of Flash installs are out of date. And if you think about the number of vulnerabilities and exploits for Flash we've covered since we first started this show almost 12 years ago, it's pretty staggering. And probably not surprising that no one updates their Flash. The real question is, do attackers need to exploit Flash and actually do an exploit on it? Because what I've found, and you do pen testing today, Larry, how often do you use a Flash exploit, right? Because you got to know that person is vulnerable and what version it is.
Well, clearly that 53% of the people are vulnerable, but I still need to know which version
and what operating system to tune my payload.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Well, I have to write that into my code, and then that gets complicated.
Right. Now, of course, there's ways to fingerprint a lot of that by sending. You send a first round of emails that's significantly more legitimate, and you include some stuff in the websites that they go to query the browser for Flash versions.
And that's good for spray and pray, right? I'm going to set up some Flash exploits on a website, and
I wouldn't even do the exploits. I'd just do something actually somewhat legitimate that I could get people to respond to. That ask the browser, hey, what version of Flash do you have?
Right.
And then go from there, and then I can tailor my exploit to which.
Right. Or you just do the spray and pray, right? You set up a website with it exploding Flash, and 53% are vulnerable.
Yep.
What percentage of those can be vulnerable to whatever you deem as the most popular Flash vulnerability and associated exploit?
Go for the old the browser autopwn that you just stage them. Here's this one. Go to this one. Go to this one. Go to this one, and then you spray them all.
Even still,
ugly.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe that's why because no one's really exploiting it.
Yep.
Because no one's getting ransomware or losing their data as a result of a Flash exploit. Everyone's like, I don't really need
the bigger question that I've got: who's still running Flash?
Well, in Chrome, it blocks it. It blocks it by default.
Right. And there are so few sites that I actually go to that require Flash now.
Right. It's true.
The sad part is.
Even my friends tell me that porn sites have caught on to HTML5 as well.
Yeah. Now I just am saying this. I'm like, who runs Flash? I know it's not Flash, but I'm wondering if what happens when I go to actually my website, not the one that you guys know, another one that I know that I built a long time ago that uses dynamic HTML, if that still actually works.
Is it a porn site?
No.
Oh.
Man, Dreamweaver was the shit back then.
Oh, wow. Taking me way back, Larry.
Yeah, dynamic HTML.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Ustream for a long time, remember, people that used to watch the stream. And that was actually one of the reasons why we switched to YouTube and Facebook. And could be why those services caught on is because it doesn't require Flash. And everyone was fed up with Flash.
Yep.
And then after we switched, or just around the time we were switching, the Firefox and Chrome and other browsers were like, we're not loading Flash by default anymore.
Yep.
And it was time to abandon Flash.
Yep.
So I'd like to declare Flash is dead, except Dual comes out with this survey. But it be
it's
dead,
there. It's dead, and people just forget about it and not uninstall it.
Right.
So
maybe the risk is we've had this kind of discussion. The risk isn't as great as I thought about this.
The other one too to think about, and I want to say this is the case. I mean, we do a lot of monitoring of news stories through RSS, and we use various RSS readers. And I'm curious to what you're using under Linux to do so.
I'm not really.
Yeah.
There was one that is a Chrome plugin, but it's not very good. I'm actually. It's kind of funny. It segues into my other stories.
But before we get there,
go ahead.
So RSS reader, I had two. I used the one that you turned me on to. What?
ReadKit?
No. NetNewsWire.
NetNewsWire, which I think became ReadKit.
Nope.
No.
Well, no, they're
there's
two
two different-
separate.
yeah.
Two separate. But ReadKit is now the quote the successor
and
to
this
NetNewsWire.
Reader is pretty good. That's an OS 10 app from the App Store.
So I switched from NetNewsWire to Reader. Why? Because NetNewsWire crashed like 4 or 5 times a day because of a Flash plugin.
Yes.
And I said, "Fuck this shit! I need to find something better." And ReadKit was it. And ReadKit's been pretty damn stable for me. But so your next story, the segueing into the next story.
And it's kind of interesting that there was this thing, Getsploit, which search and downloads exploits. So you basically give it a technology and it downloads the exploit, and it uses a website that I was researching today, as well as another like Hacker News Network, which we referenced a story from them earlier. Like they don't have RSS feeds anymore. I couldn't get the RSS feeds to load there was no RSS feed. Vulns.
For which one?
Vulns for
Vuln
Hacker News.
Hacker News?
Hacker. We referenced this, the Hacker News.
The Hacker News. Yeah, they're in my feed because, well, maybe not because I got this from somewhere else, but.
Like I go here and there's no RSS icon.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They hide the icon a lot. So what you do is you take the hackernews.com and you throw it in your RSS reader and figures it out.
And it told me it couldn't figure it out.
Really?
And then there was another one in this article. Crap. Now I've lost it. Where did it go? No, I lost my wiki. Hold on. I got too many tabs open.
No, too many wikis.
Too many tabs open.
Add a feed subscription.
It was like if you use Kali and Searchsploit, you'll like this. It was Vulns.
Yeah, see, ReadKit found it just fine.
Interesting.
Yep. So I went to ReadKit. I went to my folder. I wanted to add a feed subscription. Dropped in thehackernews.com. Okay. It came back and said it actually found an address for it. Add them an RSS. Let's do RSS because I like that.
Mine didn't do that. Mine didn't do that. Interesting.
It's because I'm awesome.
My computer sucks. And it's not my ad blocker because you're connected to this network. So,
yep.
Interesting. There was another website on here that Getsploit used. Hold on. Vulners.com.
Vulners?
VULNERS.com. This is a new one. Now, there's a service around this as well, but it has some free. It was like my RSS reader, dude. In like a website that you could search. It follows all of the feeds, or not all, I should say, but a lot of the feeds that we know and love, right? And lets you search on them. I thought it was an interesting resource. And really what I'm coming down to is just writing my own. I mean, this site does a pretty good job, but it doesn't include all the ones that I follow. Now you can subscribe, so you can like submit a query and like subscribe. But like I'm kind of coming down to just like writing my own Python code to do some of this stuff. And I mean, there's Python RSS readers, but like I just want like specific things. I'm thinking of customizing something for me because I'm frustrated with the RSS readers. Like you said, they crash. I had that problem today where it wouldn't let me subscribe to any feeds. I don't know what was going on with that. And then it's these cool websites that are tracking some of these things. And there's lots of, we've come across so many resources over the years.
Yep. My thing is like, for me, the RSS reader is how I live and die, which is scary.
I know.
And every time somebody sends me an article that's totally awesome, I try to add the site to my RSS feed. And like to the point now that like the only way you can watch YouTube videos really is via subscription. But you can RSS feed your subscriptions with YouTube.
Nice.
Which, like, I have to do that because I live in this interface all day, every day type of thing. And
yeah, and I feel like RSS is kind of fading out.
It is, but, like, what's the replacement?
Yeah, exactly.
There isn't one, which is kind of disappointing.
It is.
And now I will say, sometimes it's overwhelming. Like, if I look at my RSS reader right now, I've got 7,300 items, which for me is absolutely freaking insane. But there are very good points that I will go in there and I'll look at the RSS feed and I'll go, oh, hey, look at that. My deals feed for my deals folder has 1,700 items in it. And I'm not shopping for anything right now, so mark all
I don't believe that.
Mark all is red.
I don't believe you're not shopping for anything right now.
Always shopping. And if I am, I will go back and I'll search.
That's right.
So, hey, look, I just dropped it to 5,600 from 7,300. There's a lot of those that'll do that too.
What else you got, Larry?
What else do we got here? There was one other that was pretty
Automated
fun.
path to domain admin with Death Star. We talked about that.
The other one was the Healthcare Industry Cybersecurity Task Force report.
Mm-hmm.
And we happen to know a couple of names for the folks that were involved in this. At least one. Looking at the members of the task force, there were 21 individuals. Let's see.
Does one of them have pink hair?
Actually, no.
No. She was involved a while back.
She might have been, but she is not listed specifically in this report. There's a lot of names that are unfamiliar to me, but there's also lots of folks in here like
Josh Corman?
Dave Finn, Healthcare Information Technology Officer from Symantec.
Mm-hmm.
Third item on this list is Josh Carman.
Mm.
So co-founder of
He was telling me about that at Source.
Yep. And if I remember correctly, and Josh, if you're listening, please do feel free to call, give me a note and drop me a note and say, dude, you were totally wrong on this. But I was at a SANS conference, and he called me at lunch break and was like, dude, tell me about this. I know you spent a lot of time in healthcare. Tell me about this. And I spent like an hour in my entire lunch break talking on the phone, and I think a lot of that sort of prescriptive advice may have ended up in here based on his
Josh
collection
has
of
some
data.
really Josh's a great person to talk to.
God.
Like if you're in healthcare and in security or IT and you get Josh's ear, talking to him about the issues is really it's really eye-opening. Even though he told me to contain my enthusiasm when I was talking about containers on Twitter, which is kind of
Wow.
like, what is
Wow.
I couldn't contain myself.
Yep.
Literally and figuratively.
So one of our guys went through and read some of this stuff, and we had some very spirited discussion today about all of this stuff. And Jared Frades, for me, summarized this whole sort of article based around what he had read out of it. And what he summarized it was that issues identified included severe lack of security talent, legacy equipment, premature and over-connectivity, and vulnerabilities that impact patient care. And it also mentioned one legacy medical technology that had over 1,400 vulnerabilities.
Yep.
One piece of technology, which I know we've talked about on the show before because that number for the medical stuff sticks out for me, and that we talked about this one device that had 1,400 vulnerabilities.
And it's kind of timely you mentioned that. Is today the 8th? June 8th, right? Is it the 8th?
Oh, shit.
I think it's the 8th. Right?
It is.
Yesterday was the 7th. It was yesterday. Yeah. Yesterday was
Yes, the 8th.
my 1-year-old's birthday.
Yeah.
And it was like a year ago yesterday, or maybe the day before he was born, that I had that tweet that we did the segment on the show about and stuff. So, yeah.
And the day before that was my youngest daughter's birthday.
There you go.
So.
There you go.
Yep.
9 months from there must have been an interesting time.
Wow.
9 months previous to that.
Wow. And it was on a Thursday. Huh. Oh, no. Actually, it might have been on a Friday. Like after we got over our hangovers.
Could be.
Maybe.
Could be. In any case.
In any case. Yeah, let's not think about that too much.
Healthcare security.
Yeah, healthcare security is abysmal. The one that I really thought was kind of interesting was the first one identified by Jared rather, was the lack of security talent.
Yes.
And it was my experience there that absolutely true, and that we complained a lot about the federal government not being able to pay folks for what they were, quote, worth in the industry for security talent, and if they smoked marijuana. Healthcare didn't necessarily care if you smoked marijuana, at least you didn't do it on the job type of thing. But we're also very much unwilling to pay very well as well, even though they need to have a vested interest in it. And Paul, you and I, we talked about this with Graham earlier about the whole state of healthcare in the U.S. and that it's very much a challenging market to get into, just financially, period.
It's interesting. We talked about Raspberry Pi and its default username and password.
I thought we were going to talk about WannaCry.
No, I want to. So we know that Pi and Raspberry are the default passwords, and then there's a worm essentially that goes and finds them, and not surprisingly uses them to mine Bitcoin. And it's just kind of, it's really depressing to me that they haven't that they released this project.
Yep.
Maybe they didn't know it was going to be as popular as it was. I don't know. But to release that with a default password. And then they fixed the problem by basically disabling SSH by default, so you have to enable it, which everyone just goes and enables it. It doesn't fix the problem with the default password. And
now, admittedly, having used a Raspberry Pi, for a lot of them and such, and have lots of storage of them, one of the first things that I do is create a new account, remove or disable the Pi account for logins, or change the password to something I don't even remember.
Right.
And use the other account, which has sudo access, and then I turn on SSH.
Right.
And the sad part is, you know how I do that? Serial cable. Now, mom and pop that are buying a Raspberry Pi as was intended was an inexpensive computer to plug into the TV that the kids could learn how to program on and such, and learn Python and do Scratch and that type of stuff. They're not going to know how to do this. I think very much on boot up install to have a please set a password would be smart.
I agree. I've always agreed. Internet cameras have hard-coded passwords you can't change. Nothing new here as well.
Nope.
We talked about this one for a really long time. The stories kind of sucked this week.
Yeah, they did.
They did for Enterprise Security Weekly too.
It was a.
I did Hack Naked News, and I thought the stories were pretty good, and then it was downhill from there too.
Yep. The only other one that I've got, which is kind of interesting, that is going to be interesting from a quote a red team perspective, is one that Tyler picked up on, if I remember correctly, was delivering malware via PowerPoint files.
I didn't see that one. I'm glad you talked about it. Yeah.
The article is fairly light on details, but what we'd seen before with delivering some malware via PowerPoint, it would be via macros. And you have to enable macros and run the macro, or have the macro run on startup and all of those types of things. However, in this particular case, no macros are required. But when you open the PowerPoint and you hover over a link in the PowerPoint, it will perform an action, which is of whatever you choose. So let's say you hover over a link, it automatically downloads, and let's say you have it automatically download like a PowerShell script that executes and runs PowerShell for you.
This is an old attack.
No, this is it?
It says you might have heard of the above-mentioned security warning multiple times, as hackers usually leverage this decade-old attack to hack computers through, especially
right. So the first one is the macros, and then it's like, but wait, there's more.
Yeah, there's been other attacks that don't require macros, not 10 years old, but yeah.
Right. So this one is a hover over link, and then it tries to do PowerShell.
Gotcha.
So I don't know whether it's new or not, but let's put it this way: it made the news yesterday on the Hacker News.
Interesting.
Which is going to be an interesting new attack vector for red team type stuff.
Cool.
Yep.
What else has got you excited about security?
That's you had the story about the TV network getting hacked.
Yes.
And there was some Twitter accounts and some other stuff, and the political stuff we've shied away from for a long time, and I don't profess to be an expert on some of that. But this whole thing that has gone with and the political implications of Kadar and the tweets and the television stuff are incredibly scary, incredibly frustrating, and tied with some of the new revelations from Comey's testimony today are potentially world-changing.
Yeah, I know. I still think I
don't know what to think about it.
I think attribution is hard.
Yep.
Agreed. I think that we have seen a shift that so-called cyber attacks are certainly influencing stuff in the real world more and more every day as it becomes more mainstream. And the interesting thing for me is, like, where is it going to go? And the concerning thing for me is, when are people going to get it and realize that the integrity of your systems and processes and information really hinges on your so-called cybersecurity? And that's the really interesting thing, that I think gives us certainly selfishly us a platform to always do the show and have jobs, which is good. Not so good is what concerns me about, as we move forward and see where, this takes us, as increasingly as we've seen as a trend over the past 15 years or more, that more people rely on technology. Therefore, more people need to rely on the security of that technology, but it largely goes ignored. And I think that's really the heart and soul of this show, one of them anyway. One is just getting together with friends and drinking and talking security, but that's the primary goal.
Yeah.
The other one is awareness too.
Right. And us giving back to help other people learn what we've learned and to see the things that we've seen. And
right.
Yeah. And it's kind of scary that some of this stuff is starting to come full circle. Hey, with that microdot thing, we talked about that.
What's interesting, Doug White and I were talking, which is always fascinating to talk to Doug. He's so awesome. And I was telling him a little bit about the Docker container project I was working on. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's just like the mainframes we used to do back in the day. And then I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, yeah. Like on a mainframe, like you create essentially a virtual system. He's like, but you would define the two major things, right? One, exactly what was that essentially container back in mainframe days going to do? What files was it going to have? What processes it was going to run? What was it going to do? What was it going to have access to? And who was going to have access to it?
Yep.
And then he's like, the other thing you would define is how much resources you were going to allocate to it. He said it was whole people's jobs to do the predictions and math and reasoning around how much resources should this take? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing now, dude. That's what wow. It's amazing how things come full circle like that. So that was a pretty cool conversation I had this week about we joke about containers a lot in Docker and stuff, but
it's full circle.
It is. We talked about how VMs were but containers are even more so like that. And really coming out of having done a lot with containers for the past week and a half or so, I probably could have just done VMs.
Right. Well, and the sad part.
And we did have a VMware escape type or DOS or both this week as well. That was in the news, so make sure vSphere data protection.
Yep, we had another one a couple weeks ago too that we talked about, or at least was in the show notes. I don't know whether.
And what John Stern and I were speculating on enterprise security this week was, what happens when people really start looking at this containerization security problem, because
everybody's doing it.
I've just started to look into it. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of ways you can share data in different ways between containers, and a lot of ways you can network containers together. And sharing data and networking are kind of in the same ball game, right? And I'm like, I'm nervous about that.
Yep.
Really.
What you don't need to break out of the container if the container's talking on the network. Or a network.
Right. And how do you define rules? I just think a lot of it is kind of scary.
Yep.
But I do also think that talking with other experts in the field, I did an interview with Corey Bosden from Tenable Network Security, who I worked with, who's just awesome, and was talking about containerization security. And other people that we talk with too are like, no, we're going there. It's happening whether we like it or not.
Yeah, IoT, we're going there whether we like it or not.
And the security implications are just more to come on that front. I'm not ready to do a segment on it yet. I feel like it's like a video game, and I'm I maybe just passed level 1, and I'm just starting level 2 kind of thing. So I can talk about it at a high level and talk about some of my concerns so far. But as I move through our deployment, and my goal was really to take an application that we have here that we use internally and deploy it on this technology. One, because I do, even though I think it's still a little immature, I still do think it is the future, and I think this is how applications and DevOps, that's just the way it's going to happen. I do want to gain insight into the process to learn more and then share. So I've already got one thing I shared on Enterprise Security Weekly was, in this process, I'm realizing that developers are sysadmins more so than they were ever before. In defining these containers, you're doing a lot of sysadmin type tasks, and that's very scary when you think about a traditional developer that doesn't have a background in sysadmin.
Right.
It's very scary.
Right, and then and potentially not a background in security for either one of those.
Oh yeah,
potentially environments, whether it be DevOps or
shit, dude. Having a background in security that I have, I really wasn't concerned about that getting it to work. I gotta be, and that is one of my concerns about this whole new technology. Is I was like, it was a feat just to get it to work. Like now, I'm starting to think about the security implications, and I'm like, wow. But I also think on the flip side of that, and one of the things Corey and I kind of touched on too was, yeah, it was a lot of work to get it working, but it's so flexible that when I go apply security, I'm like, oh, yeah, like I was telling Mark earlier, as one of our production engineers, I'm like, I can like rebuild the whole environment with a script in like 5 minutes. Like less than 5 minutes, I can rebuild the whole environment. Now, it may not work and it would be horribly insecure, but if I identify those problems,
I can rebuild it again in 5 minutes.
Shit, I can just rebuild it again.
Yep.
And then
it takes you an hour to make that 5-minute script, though.
And I'm kind of, yeah, exactly. But I'm like, why would I rebuild this? I'm like, oh, I want it to be more resilient. And it was Josh Corman that kind of brought that resiliency aspect into it. And I'm like, well, if I can identify problems and then fix my process, and yeah, that's a little bit of a process, but the fact that I can just keep rebuilding it and deploying it and much faster, I'm like, that does have a positive effect on security, right? It's not a big deal. I mean, when you and I first started in this field, like building and deploying an application or a server or whatever was like a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not something that we could just write a script and go redeploy, right? It involved power and network and physical hardware and operating a system installation and the whole thing.
Like thinking about now, even in the last 6 months or so, you go talk about doing a red team and standing up all the infrastructure for a red team. And that's scriptable now.
Yeah. Which is, again, pluses and minuses. So I'm excited to explore the topic a little more. I know Dave Shackelford's been very busy. And last time we had him on, he talked about writing cloud. So I definitely have to touch base with Dave. So Dave, if you're listening, you expect a phone call.
And
I want to touch base on that.
And to that, let's set the path for the future. If we talk about all this automation and scripting and containerization and all of this
Gotta go watch the YouTube Hitler video.
No, not even that. You know, bring it more to the future. Go read Snow Crash.
Yeah.
And we talk about containerization of your brain and some of those type of things. And I think I might just go read that again just because,
For sure.
But that's where I see it going.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching to Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, please take us out.
Cut it out? Oh, no. Over and out!